What's going on, guys? Julien here, back with another video. Today I'm here with Sacco, and we're doing another segment of Goo or Glue, where we go over deck list and see if they're the goo or the glue for glue eaters. Today we're gonna go over K9 Vanquishal, meta relevant deck, and see how good it really is. Before we get started, I want to shout out Sleeve Chief for sponsoring the channel. Go check them out in the description. You can use code Julien for 5% off at checkout. Also, go check out the Gaming Metro, my team, also Sacco's team, our sponsor. So big shout out to them. Sacco, do you have any words before we get started?
You can also check my channel out. There's a bunch of links in the description. You should just go click on all of them in order. And if it has anything about purchasing something, use code Sacco instead.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyways, yeah. So today we're looking at regional topping list for K9 Vanquish Soul. That's what we're gonna be doing from now on. Instead of using like our own deck list, we're gonna use more proven deck lists. That way we can see how they actually fared at tournaments and all that stuff. And yeah, so today big shout out to Christopher Schmidt for his deck list. He topped the um,
Seattle.
Seattle Regional. Thank you. He topped the Seattle Regional. Pretty decently big regional, at least like 300 people. So not that small. Good regional top. And yeah, so let's take a look at his deck list. First, we can see in terms of the engine ratios, it's pretty standard. You have 3 of all the good cards. He's playing only one Caesar, which I agree with. He's playing 2 borders with it. I think it's fine. I think border should be like a 1 of or a 2 of. He's also chose to main shifter, which is interesting. I was at a regional myself this last weekend, and I didn't play a single Malice, so I don't hate the idea of maining shifter. If you don't think that you're gonna run into Malice too much, especially during like the beginning of a format, people are gonna be bored of Malice and probably not play it too much. So I actually don't hate that choice.
Yeah, I really
For the
agree. I think that playing Shifter in this deck is really good. It's something that I was originally iffy about. But to be honest, just like the pure upside of Shifter and like being able to counter some like the stronger decks in the format is really powerful.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. For the non-engine lineup, we can see that he chose to play 3 Fuolos. Makes sense. 1 Nibiru, which honestly, I kind of like playing more of that card. I know it's not an attribute, but with your turn 0 hand trap plays, this card pairs super well. And then on top of your board, like you open Nib, it's a god card. So I would probably try to play more of that. 3 Ash Blossoms is fire, you have to. The 1 Durgan and the 1 Kurikara, the 2 fires, which makes sense, they're both like fire board breaker cards. I actually really like Kurikara in the main deck for this deck, because if you ever get hit by a Holy Suit in a mirror match and you Kurikara it, then that's really strong, because in the end phase you can actually steal their Holy Suit, and then now you have a Holy Suit on your board. So I think that's really cool. For the side deck, we see the second nib. Something common that I've seen, people just like playing one nib, siding the second one. Again, I would say play more of that card. That card's really broken. 2 Phantasmes, 2 Lancias, which is interesting. I guess, we're not expecting too much Malice, so that could make sense. 3 Perulia, 2 Drolls. I like the Perulias in the side. I think that if you're not gonna main them, I think you should definitely side them, because there's a lot of decks that it's good into. It does miss a lot of the format, so I think it's fine to side them. But yeah, siding the 3 makes a lot of sense. 2 Drolls. I'm assuming for the mirror match and for like Ryziel variants if they're still around. Talents, called by, cross out. I like the talents in the call by. I don't know if I agree with the cross out, because I don't really know what you're like keeping in. Like, there's no way we're keeping in Fuolo's post side. And then like other in terms of non-engine, we're really only hitting Nib or Ash. So I don't think I totally agree with the cross out. And then Tikabu anti-spell, just like blowout cards. Those are really good. So that's it
Yeah.
for the side deck. Do you have any takes on the side deck?
I really agree. I think the crossout is like not the best card. Like one thing that I was actually talking about with my good friend Jonathan Pittman. You can probably find him on YouTube. If you just look up Sean Pittman, you'll find him. Shout out to him. But he was playing this card in the deck, and or like I think he was playing in Yummy. But the thing is, like this card just kind of sucks this format. Honestly, the only hand traps you're super worried about, it's like exactly Holy Sue and exactly Azuna. The problem with this deck is like if you're crossing out a Holy Sue, like that's one resource that's automatically gone forever that you can't touch, but it's also turning off your Holy Sue for the rest of this turn, and they're probably gonna Holy Sue before you Holy Sue them in the mirror match. And like that's one of the only hand traps that you care about really hitting. If you're hitting it on Azuna, it's gonna turn off your Azuna, which is like already a counter to their Azuna. It's like I don't think you really just need to be playing this card. There's just like other cards that counter it better. unless we're like super worried about something like a Fuwalos, which this deck just isn't. And maybe they're bringing in like the Droll and they're trying to like have more answers to Droll. But to be honest, this deck already has a play through Droll. I don't know if you can see it down here. He's this funny looking guy with like a hammer. He plays through Droll pretty well. But that's like my only like criticism on the deck. I will say that I do like the Kurikara as well. I also like the Dogoran being able to like kind of like differentiate the two like fire like board breakers that you're playing in your deck by playing one of each so they don't become redundant is really cool. I do really like Dogoran a little bit more than Kurikara in this deck. Being able to use the Mad Love to bounce the Dogoran back to your hand because it's super low in stats is really cool. I do wish that we saw like a Hida in this guy's extra deck though, because it gives you a really cool like out to a Ludonite Liger, which this deck usually just doesn't have the best out for. Because if you make a Hida, then you just like keep doing your plays. Eventually, they're gonna have to activate the Liger to go ahead and destroy your field. And whenever they destroy it, you can use the Hida to go ahead and add the Dogoran there. And then you can Dogoran them. If they have a second Liger, then you can use that effective Madlib I talked about to put the Dogoran back in your hand and then give it right back to them. So that's like one cool interaction that I think that is really cool about Dogoran in this deck. Let's look at the extra deck.
Yeah, so the extra deck to me looks pretty standard. It looks like this guy decided to not play the Masquerade package, but rather the Honor Dark package, which I think is actually like pretty decent. You can also because you can also make Silent Honor Arc with your level fours in your deck, so it gives you more flexibility when you have bodies that you like when you're trying to break a board and they leave you with like the two random level fours. You might actually be able to convert them into something, which then also can go into Zeus and Zeus with as many materials as you can when you have guys whose function is to eat other monsters and attach them is really strong.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's pretty standard. We can see he's playing Venomoly too, just Monster Negate, which I don't know if I'd play it in this deck specifically because this guy's a light, so you can't make this with your Jokul or with your Lanterns. So you'd have to really just make this with Azuna. When I think there's better things to make with Azuna, and you already have like Ripper to answer monsters. So I don't know if I'd play this card specifically, but still an interesting choice. The main thing that I see here is the Saruya, which I think that card's kind of weird. You only ever make this card if you don't open Vanquish Soul cards, and you're like, I only have K9 cards. I'm gonna use 4 bodies. I'm gonna make this guy. I'm gonna draw 4. I'm surely gonna draw a Vanquish Soul monster, and then I'm gonna Saruya special summon it. I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I think it's funny. I tried it, like I had it in my extra deck, and I never summoned it one time. I never summoned it one time. I'd much rather end on like 2 XYZs when I know that like the K9 cards aren't as strong as the Vanquish Soul cards by themselves. But at the end of the day, like, are you really gonna put 4 bodies into a Link monster and then just die to Nibiru for the rest of the turn? Like, that seems terrible to me. So that's pretty much it for the extra deck. Again, we're not here to like judge or fix this guy's list. We're just taking the list that topped, looking at it, just analyzing the deck itself. Giving our opinion on it, just because like we're here for it, and then just again rating the deck as a whole and seeing how good it is.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I've learned about this Vimana card. We just recorded a video like a little bit ago about the Christian Canine deck, and I made a comment about how a lot of the time people are making this illegally. One thing I've learned since we recorded that video a little bit ago is that they're usually really using this card as like a second Ripper. So what they do is they make the Ripper, they use their effect to search, and then they'll add I don't know like an Izuna usually. The thing is, if you get like hand trapped and you have to use your Izuna to negate or your Ripper to negate it, or like they imperm on your Ripper, what you can do to play through that is like whatever hand trap they use to kind of stop your Ripper. I mean, most of the time it's a monster effect. You'll be able to trigger the Azuna that you have searched because you have so many searches. Like you get one off of Jokul, you'll probably get one off of Ripper. Um, you'll be able to use the Azuna to basically special there, send the Lupus, then special back to Lupus, and then make the mana there. That way you're kind of have like a free way to like extend with Lantern before you're really like playing into anything super scary. It's really just used as like a way to play through when you have to use your Ripper negate or like when they have something that is a little bit threatening that you have to deal with when they stop Ripper. It's kind of just like a way to extend from there. But besides that, I did want to talk about this card for a second. This is a card that's not in every Vanquish Soul list, the Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon. I think this guy is super goated. He's very strong. That's really all I wanted to say. He's super cool and he kills people really fast.
That's true. That's true. So now, as always with this kind of videos, we have kind of like the tech cards, the cards that are good into this deck. Um, on the side, and so starting with it, we have just like Nib. Nib is in pair with Baylor there, just because we kind of want to talk about how Nib is really strong into this deck. Nib can like destroy the board if you're able to pair with any kind of card that will affect Ripper, right? So like a Veiler, Imperm, Azuna, if you're playing Dragon Tail like 5 mana, anything that can force out the Ripper negate, and then you just their board is just kind of like staring at you like like you can just nib that thing. So I think nib is really good paired. It's only though something I would do if your deck can afford to play a large count of non-engine, or if all your non-engine are like paired with nib. Those are the only two ways I play nib in your deck. Otherwise, nib can feel really weak.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Nib is like a hit or miss card, but to be honest, when it hits crazy. It ends their turn. Like as long as you don't like do something stupid, like summon your Azuna into like a Vanquish Soul board, and just like put the Azuna like in like a raising column that was already there for some reason. I don't know who would do that, but as long as you don't do that, like Nib plus any interaction, like obviously clears their field. The cool thing with it into this deck specifically is that it's fully clearing their field, and most of the time that's just like deals with like the monsters that they have. But in this deck, it also stops them from using the field spell to set during the end phase, which is their biggest disruption. So Nib is so powerful versus this deck, especially when paired with another hand that kind of turns off the Ripper.
Yeah, so next we have Drool. Drool's actually like pretty decent against this deck. It's not that good into the Canine cards specifically because the Canine cards are able to, get you Azuna, which plays through Drool really easily. But it's decent against the Vanquisher cards. It's kind of hit or miss though, because a lot of the time you Drool them, they make Rock, then they Azuna, make Ripper. So they have like half their board, but then Rock is also like their full K9, sorry, their full Vanquish Soul setup on your turn because they just go Rock, Special Raisin. If they already have Holy Suit, they have Holy Suit now. Like, Droll's a little hit or miss. I'd rather play cards that pair with each other rather than Droll just trying to, like, cut them off without actually trading one for one for cards. Because Vanquish Soul is a deck that trades really well into one for ones. So you kind of need, like, paired cards to beat it.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. Like having paired cards is really, really good into this deck. I will say his list is trying to play around Droll a little bit more by having less redundant cards in it. Like as you can see, it was something we glazed over in like the initial look of the deck. He's not playing Case of K9 in it. A lot of people are starting to cut down in Case of K9 in this build as opposed to playing the quick play spell instead. I don't think that's necessarily the best way to do it. I think you could kind of swap that. If you open Case of Canaan, a lot of the time you're just activating that card first to add Azuna. Then you just kind of look at him and you go, please droll me. I would love for you to droll me. Do you want to droll me? Please droll me. Please. And then they droll you and you just Paradise Smash them. So it is something to consider, saying like that card that plays through Droll rather than it plays into Droll if you just do things a little bit more correctly. But it is something like to notice that he's not playing that card by trying to make attempts to play around this card.
Yeah, so next we have Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre is definitely decent into the deck. If you ogre the start, then it prevents them from both getting a search and getting them trapped in the end phase. I definitely think that ogre is a card you want to play in a deck that can pair non-engine, that can play like a decent amount of non-engine. Just because if they like this is a heavy engine count deck, and a lot of the times they can go like Jiaolong search or trap if you ogre this. So you need to pair ogre to prevent them from getting their other searches. But ogre is definitely pretty decent. Um, that's pretty much it for Ogre. Another card that's good into this deck is Fenrir. Fenrir is definitely not good going second into this deck. Fenrir is good going first because going first, all this deck does is it summons bodies on you, right? And if you can just Fenrir, boop, 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 banish face down, that's really strong. Like it completely stops Azuna. It also checks Holy Sue special summon because they go Holy Sue effective special summon from deck, special summon Raisin. Then on res, you go Fenrir target Raisin. They can either search or pop, they can't do both. And at the end of the day, they're left with one pop because they can search Caesar, bounce the Holy Sue and get one pop, but at least you cut that in half. And you have a Fenrir that replaces itself by adding another Fenrir in your hand. So Fenrir is definitely good into this deck, like going when you go first into the deck.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Fenrir and Ghost Ogre kind of do the same thing versus deck when you're going first. Having a card that also counters the Azuna stuff really well is like fantastic, as well as just like being a part of your inboard for Fenrir is super cool. Because obviously when they go for like the Azuna stuff, they're having to activate a monster effect. The only way they really play around the like Fenrir in this situation is if they hard open Azuna and Lupus, because then they can activate them to summon the same chain link. And then if you try to go like Fenrir, banish one of them, they're just going to chain the Lupus. But most of the times it's like using the effect of Azuna to send Lupus effect revive from graveyard. And then you can just like before they use the Lupus effect, you'll be like chainlink one Fenrir, banish your Azuna, and like all their Lupus does is really become a Typhon, which is not that big of a deal. Ghost Ogre does the same thing, just being able to Ghost Ogre the Lupus and banish it forever is super cool in this deck, and so they both have like that same like protection for going first.
Yeah, next we have Kura, which we already talked a little bit about. This card is good. I think you'd only really play Kura in this deck specifically. to beat the mirror. Because, like I said before, like you Kurikara tribute a Holy Suit when they Holy Suit you. That's really strong because again, you get to special summon it back in the end phase. Like let's say they removed one of your bodies, and now you only you have start plus you only have one Vanquish Soul name. If you Kurikara Reborn the Holy Suit, now you have two, and in the end phase, you can activate your field spell to spell your trap, which is pretty cool. Also, at breaking the board, this card is really good because it's a bunch of different monsters activating their effects. And then you go Kurikara, it has 15 million attack, GG's. Like, that's also a pretty cool interaction. Um, and yeah, so I think Kurikara is pretty cool. It's also a fire, which this deck lacks fires. Like, you're like whenever you play this deck, if you play this deck, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You're always like port and fire because every other attribute is searchable through your canine engine, but you can't search fires. So you always really want a way to access fires. If you don't open fires, you're like kind of in a tough spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the Curry card is super cool into this board. It's really easy to bail this deck's interactions or kind of just like get them to play the game because you just like start doing your combo and you're just sitting here with this Curry card in your hand and you just look super sad. You do the funny little Yu-Gi-Oh player thing where you're like, fine, I guess I'll just do this. Oh, you stop that. I guess I'll just do this. And you just like pretend like your engine is like your main goal here. And then after they do like a bunch of different things, you just go, oh, darn, okay, I'll Curry card the field battle phase attack for game.
Yeah, it's really funny. Um, Another card is Droplet. That's kind of the theme for all these cards going into this deck is that they're strong into stopping the turn zero plays because that's what this deck does best. Is it high rolls you so hard by opening like some 3 card combinations or just like Izuna to do all this, and then you can just Droplet prevent all that from happening. Same with Fenrir, Banish Face Down, Kurikara, Tribute It. All these cards are good at countering that. And the good thing about Droplet is that it works in both directions. That not only does it help you when going first into this deck, it also helps you break the board going second. So I think that Droplet is like one of the best cards into this deck, just because it's a quick play spell. So you can play it going first, going second. It has a lot of good utility. Also, if you play a deck that has a lot of cards that it can send easily for cost, like here for example, we have some spells we can send. We can also like if we set up monsters on our opponent's turn, when we go to break their board, we can send the monsters on our field because we have excess monsters, all that stuff. It's really good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Dark Lord does pretty much the same thing as Droplet does. There's even like some instances where like people are starting to bring in Dark Lord when going first into like specifically decks that play the um like Izuna stuff in it because a lot of the time when you get into like a K9 mirror match, you'll like special the Izuna and then special the Lupus, and then you're not really exactly sure which like Xyz you want to make. And so what you'll do is you actually just like they'll summon both of them before they summon the Ripper. That way, like after they make the Ripper, they can kind of like you can kind of like wait and like decide later on how you want to interact or what other Xyz you want to make, and then they can just Dark Roller you there, like on turn 0, which is really funny. And then they can just continue playing their game like there's nothing that can like really interact with them at that point. I will say Droplet does this more efficiently because you don't have to like randomly risk playing a card that's super horrible if they don't exactly as into you, but it is something to keep in mind. And then next up we have Eclipse. Eclipse is basically like a godsend versus this deck. It's insane being able to Eclipse clog up their whole field because one major problem this deck has is like its field is so big that it just like stops your Vanquish Soul plays on accident just because there's so many things just like on the field. If you Eclipse them, like you're shutting down like their Nash Knight or their 104, whatever like they're really playing there or whatever like C's they're choosing to make there. You're also setting like whatever Vanquish Soul monsters they have on their field because remember they're gonna have 2 Vanquish Soul monsters so that they can get their trap in the end phase, and you're setting the Ripper. And there's nothing they can really do to like make that Ripper like play through this at any point. Because if they chain their Canine Quick Play spell and they summon their Werewolf, it's also going to take a nap when this Eclipse resolves, and it just outs pretty much everything they have. A lot of the time, what you end up doing is you do that to them and you clear everything. All they have is like a random rock, one open monster zone, and the trap card. And at that point, it's like not that difficult to play through, right? That was like old Vanquish Soul, like 2024 Vanquish Soul before this sec like actually got like more support.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And another card that's good to pair with like those monster removal cards is Lightning Storm or Duster. If you open those, it's really strong to be able to, like the Vanquish Soul Trap, like we said before, is like the biggest disruption in this deck. Just board wipe can be really, really threatening for you. So if you're able to just, get rid of that, the weakness of this deck, like the one big weakness it has is that it has no Omni Negates, right? And so that's why, cards like Book of Eclipse are really strong. Droplets. You don't even have to send monsters. You can just negate their board, and what are they gonna do about it? Like Duster, Lightning Storm, all those cards are really good because they can respond if they want to. Like, what are they gonna do? If you have an empty board, they don't have anything to disrupt. Doesn't matter. So yeah, so those cards are really good, especially paired. Being able to out both sides of the board, which actually kind of brings me on to the next one, which is Ultimate Slayer. Which this deck like always ends on some form of XYZ, right? Unless they go like only Vanquisher combo, but then it's not as threatening at least. And so if you can Ultimate Slayer them, remove, let's say, like the Sea Masquerade, which is a scary card, like rips a card from your hand, halves your life point. Like, we don't want that to happen. And then you send Valon and you out the trap. So you took care of two like annoying disruptions um, that you'd have to play through. And then now they're both gone for one card. So you're trading pretty positively. This card is really good. This card also covers other matchups well, like Yummy, for example, where you Ultimate Slayer send Malong, and then you just bounce their Yummy monster. So it's like they got to use the effect negated, right? They don't get anything back. So yeah, so this card is really interesting, and I would consider it in your side deck just because it is very good into a lot of matchups.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think one other thing is it's like super keen to bring up here is like even if they're playing a build like this where they may not be playing the C104 and they may just be like holding their extenders. Like one thing I've seen people do is like not commit their lantern, their turn one combo, and they just hold that in their hand as their dark. They do that a lot in builds like this that don't play the case of K9. So they kind of like hold it on for follow up. They still will have one Exceed. They'll have Ripper, and being able to use Ultimate Slayer target the Ripper is still super value. Even if they chain the K9 quick play spell and they decide to upgrade their Izuna into the Werewolf, um, and like kind of like try to dodge it. What they're doing is they're giving up the pop from the Cannon Force release by doing this. They're also giving up the Ripper disruption, and then you're still sending the Valon, which is then going to be able to target their Vanquish Soul trap, and you'll 100% know where that trap is because the field spell basically shows it to you where it is. And so you're outing the most powerful card on their end board as well as two interactions from their canine stuff with just one card. Not to mention like Werewolf is like a card that seems super broken to play around, but if you're playing a deck that plays like a board breakers in them or like a lot of like cards that are good at going second, especially spell cards, you can like set those to play around the Werewolf. Like Werewolf is not that hard of a card to really play around.
Or if you're playing Malice, you can be like, sure, look at my hand.
Yeah.
Which Malice name would you like to banish?
Dude, my favorite little funny thing you do in this deck when you're playing Malice is you go, dang, that's a cool werewolf. I think I'll set one field spell and one card. Anyways, normal summon Dormouse. I've got two monsters in my hand. Do you want to activate it? Please, please. Um,
Extender.
yeah, oh no, I guess I'll banish March Hare. Oh no, it's back. Um, yeah, it's pretty funny. Speaking of Malice, one thing that Malice can play is Impulse. Impulse is really good into this deck. Julien said it before, but the number one rule of playing Malice in this format is that Impulse gets used on the Vanquish Soul Trap. And that is about it. There's not much else to talk about with Impulse versus this deck.
Yeah, you use it against Vanquish Soul Trap. Obviously, not only Malice can play this card, so any deck that can play Impulse, like play Impulse, please, because this deck is like one of the most relevant meta decks. I don't know if it's the best meta deck, but I think it's the most popular meta deck along with Yummy. Like those are definitely the two most represented decks, and so Impulse is so good into both those decks. So if you can play Impulse, play it. It'll be good into like most of the decks you'll play against.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm gonna cover this next one. I cover this in the Christian K9 deck profile, or like the Goo or Glue for Christian K9. That's on my channel, by the way, if you guys want to watch that. But the mutually averred destruction card that I have here, let me pull it up on the stream. This is super good versus this deck because it says that both players must keep their hands revealed this turn. The rest of this effect doesn't matter at all. I can barely pronounce what it does. If you watch my other video, you'll know what I'm talking about. But basically, they can't reveal cards that are already being revealed. It doesn't just hurt the Vanquishal aspect of this, it also hurts the Canaan aspect because they can't activate Jokul. Jokul reveals as cost. If you can't like do the cost of a card, you can't do the card. Just how it works. And so being able to use this card to not only turn off their entire Vanquishal engine, but also like turn off the like best starter for the Canaan engine is insane. It just makes it to where it's like almost game over as soon as you flip up this card.
Yeah, there's no other words. This card is a complete FTK against this deck.
Yeah.
This one's more of the funny card. This is literally mutually averred, except it's a continuous trap, and you can't switch it off with Thrust. So it's just like a worse version of this, but it does essentially the same thing. It will lock them out for the whole game. Like if you somehow you're like hate this deck and you never want to lose to it going first, play 3 of this card, you will win every single time you draw it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Like there's even the chance that you like try to bring this card in into like other matchups as well. Just because like the hand advantage is super relevant. So like you can do this against Canine Christian as well when you're going first. Being able to see exactly what's in their hand as well as turn off all of like their jokels is super good. But the main thing is like just the hand advantage of this card is just ridiculous.
But yeah, that's gonna be it for us going into the deck list and just the deck in general. Lucas, what do you think? What?
Uh, Honestly, I think this deck is okay. I think it was way overhyped from what the OCG was playing with it. I think this deck has too many bad draws in it. It has too many weaknesses, and honestly, without Maxi being like an Earth reveal, Holy Sue is just not a good enough like reliable interruption. That it's like its non-engine feels like it's super small for us in the TCG. I think I would give this deck a glue. I think this deck is like maybe I would give it a 7.2 out of 10 just because this deck has so many bad draws in it. I think if you take this deck to like a YCS that has like 11 rounds of Swiss, I think that you're probably going to lose to your own variants like 3 times. And if you go X3 at a YCS, that's not topping. And so I think you just really have to try to find the perfect deck that abuses these canine cards, because obviously these canine cards are ridiculous. They're so insanely broken. And you have to find a deck that like balances like using the canine cards efficiently and not bricking or losing to itself. And I think this deck just doesn't do it very good. So I'm gonna give it a big fat goo or big fat glue, 7.2 rating. No go.
Yeah, I agree. I think this deck, kind of same with you. I was gonna give it a 7, so like honestly, really close to what you're thinking. I do think that it bricks a lot. It like the fact that you have to tailor your non-engine around attributes like just isn't it for me. You can't play enough non-engine, but at the same time, like your engine isn't that strong to break boards. Honestly, all this deck does is try to high roll like crazy, right? Like opening Holy Soup plus attributes and Azuna next to it to stop your opponent from playing. Other than that, like if you don't open those exact things, this deck like cannot go second. So I definitely think that this is a glue rating. I agree with you. So yeah, but that's gonna be it for the video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And go check out Lucas. That's my goat. You know, love doing this series with him. So yeah, have a good day, have a good night, and I'll see you guys later.
Peace.